Hi, this is Doug Tilden. This is the second of 3 videos introducing you to the Maya. This video discusses the origins of the Maya, their cities and their political and social structure, as well as their amazing architecture. The origins of the Maya. All native peoples in the Americas are believed to be descended from the Siberian migration around 12,000 years ago. At that time, the Bering Strait between Russia and Alaska was frozen over, and Asian people are believed to have migrated into North and South America. For thousands of years after that, humans in the Americas existed as hunter-gatherers. Around 4,600 years ago, or around 2,600 BCE, archaeologists have found evidence of villages and cultivation of maize, or corn, in Mesoamerica. Nothing is more important to the Maya story than maize. This is the Maya corn god. He is the father of the heroes of the Maya creation myth, their version of the book of Genesis, which is called the Popol Vuh. In the Popol Vuh, the hero twins defeat the lords of the underworld, and humans spring forth from an ear of corn. You may notice that the hero twins have slanted foreheads. For 2,000 years, the Maya strapped wood on elite babies' foreheads to give the slanted forehead look which they found desirable. Many other cultures did this, including the Egyptians. Around 1000 BCE, the Maya civilization began to develop beyond simple farming and hunting, and they started to build structures and to make pottery. We don't really know why this happened, and archaeologists debate the matter endlessly. Why does one culture stay in a hunter-gatherer or simple farming mode, and another, like the Maya, develop in complex ways, including developing written languages, building large cities, making beautiful ceramics, and creating structured social interaction? One theory about the Maya development is that the Olmec culture from Mexico, what is now Mexico, is the mother culture of all Mesoamerican cultures. The Olmec were a much smaller culture from the east coast of Mexico near what is now Veracruz. They predated the Maya. The Olmec lands on this map are in orange, and the later Maya civilization is in green. The Olmec are particularly identifiable by the large stone heads that they made. These heads are as large as a person. I believe it's more likely that the cultures developed in parallel. There's plenty of archaeological evidence of contact and trade between different cultures, and I think all of them advanced from that contact. This is the generally accepted timeline for the Maya civilization from the start of village life until 1800. The period from 2600 BCE until 250 CE is called the Preclassic era. The Maya are beginning to build their cities, develop their language, and refine the arts from which their civilization will be known. The Classic period is the height of Maya civilization from around 250 CE to 900 CE. The major cities are built during this period. This classic civilization collapses around 900 CE. The Maya then leave the cities and for the most part revert to a simpler agrarian lifestyle. This is called the Post-Classic. And around 1500 CE, the Spanish begin their conquest of Mesoamerica. Maya cities and political system. As the Maya continued to develop, around 750 BCE, they began to expand beyond simple villages into complex cities. One of the earliest was Mirador in Guatemala, which grew to enormous size before it was abandoned around 150 CE. There are hundreds of city-states that have been discovered in the Maya area. One of the most interesting things about the Maya is how they organized their cities. Most ancient civilizations were centered around a king or pharaoh in the case of Egypt. Mesoamerican cultures that came after the Maya, like the Aztec and the Inca, were also organized around central governments and rulers. But the Maya organized around mainly independent city-states. There was never a ruler over all of the Maya. Some city-states, called polities in archaeology speak, were larger and stronger than others, and they demanded allegiance from smaller states in their area, but usually left the smaller states' rulers in place or placed their own people on the thrones. There are 72 large sites in the classic Maya period, with many smaller sites aligned with them. This is the area where we work in western Belize, called the Belize River Valley. These are just the major sites. There are many more smaller sites just in this one small area of the Maya civilization. The Belize River Valley was a wealthy area because it controlled trade on the rivers and grew cacao, or chocolate, which was in high demand throughout the Mayan civilization. I worked at two sites, Cajalpesh and Xanantanich. The larger cities nearby these sites were Caracol and Naranjo. They would ally with the smaller cities and try and control each other. Caracol is thought to have had as many as 100,000 people at its peak. One of our most important finds was evidence that Xanantanich had supported Naranjo in a war in 680 AD against Caracol. We found these panels inside of a pyramid. The panels were next to the tomb of a warrior queen. We know they were taken from Caracol when Caracol was defeated by Naranjo in 680. We know that from reading the glyphs on the panels. Until we found these panels, the involvement of Xanantanich in this war wasn't known. This political system of city-states survived for almost 2,000 years, until these cities were abandoned around 900 CE. Maya architecture. Most Maya city-states follow a similar pattern. This is a photo of the small city of Xanantanich, small by Maya standards. We've worked there every summer since 2015, but archaeology has been going on here since the late 1890s. This is a map of the site. This is a very typical pattern for a Maya city. The site includes large palaces at the end of the central courtyard. A three-pyramid shrine to the east. These are called triadic shrines. They're often on platforms, and they align with stars and the sun, and particularly mark equinoxes. Then there are ceremonial and burial pyramids ringing the center, and including two ball courts to play the ancient Maya ball game. There are workshops and elite living areas in the next ring, which are connected by sakbes or roads. Then surrounding the site center were the areas where the peasants and farmers lived and tilled their maize, cocoa, and other crops. Larger sites like Tikal or Caracol will have several of these center courtyard. Even the small polities or cities can have huge buildings. This is the largest building at Caracol. It is larger than the pyramids at Egypt. These structures took hundreds of thousands of man-hours to build, and they had no tools except simple hand tools. So who do you think built these cities? Could it have been aliens or slaves? There clearly was some slaves, mainly war captives. But mostly these structures were built by the peasants and farmers when they weren't planting or harvesting crops. The farmers believed that they were doing their part to uphold the order of the universe. They believed that the kings and priests that used these buildings were in contact with the gods who made all things happen. Maya architecture is very interesting. A couple of the interesting features are the use of the pyramid. This is a pyramid we worked at for 4 years on Cajalpesh and restored. In Mesoamerica ancient Egypt, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia many structures of pyramids. Yet these areas had little to no contact with each other. So why pyramids? One simple reason is they're stable. They're much more stable than rectangular buildings, given the construction materials available at that time. Secondly, they're closer to the heavens. A ruler or a priest standing at the top is much closer to the gods that they're trying to communicate with. A second interesting feature is the Maya believed that buildings were animate, that they were alive. They had a living spirit and energy, particularly if there were burials in the building. This structure had over 10 burials, and it's unlikely that we found them all. They built in layers. The Maya built newer structures over older ones. In one case, we have a building that has 17 different levels. This particular pyramid has 7 smaller pyramids under the final one, plus several modifications. They didn't do what we do and destroy buildings to build a new one. We think that has something to do with capturing the energy of the pyramid. This is a structure we are still working on at Xanthonich. We thought the building was built around 600 CE, like all the buildings around it. But underneath it, we found 2 older buildings from around 400 BCE, or 1,000 years earlier. The last of the earlier buildings was encased in thick limestone, as if to capture the energy of the earlier buildings. I hope you enjoyed this video on the Maya, about their origins, their cities, their political system, and their amazing architecture. I look forward to seeing you again in the third and final video of this series on the Maya. Thank you.